All right, you want to know how can you get into cybersecurity in 2026? Well, you've come to the right place. My name is Cedric Usant. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for over 10 years, and I've worked with large corporations, government agencies, nonprofits, Fortune 100s to 500 to small, mid-sized enterprises, you name it. I've helped over 100 students break into cybersecurity careers, many going from complete beginners to landing six-figure roles within a year. So it's fair to say, after all this time in the cybersecurity industry, I think I know a thing or two about how to break into cybersecurity and land a six-figure career. And today, I'm gonna show you the exact step-by-step roadmap on how to get into cybersecurity in 2026 as a complete beginner. The biggest mistakes to avoid and the insider tips that will cut off years of your journey. Let's get into it. So a lot of people have a lot of common beliefs that you need to have a computer science degree to get in, and if you don't, you won't. You know, that's not true. They think you need 5+ certifications before applying because all these jobs are asking for it, and they think it's gonna be a waste of time, money. That's not true. A lot of people believe that, you need to be some sort of coding expert for most entry-level roles. That's not true. You gotta have basic level skills, but you don't gotta be an expert. And they think that it takes 3 to 5 years to break in, but it can happen in 12 months with the right approach. You just need to follow a simple 4-step process. It's proven. I've done it. First, you need to build your foundation. This could take 1 to 3 months. You need to understand your fundamentals, but this is where a lot of people try to skip this step and then they fall flat on their face after years, and then they're wondering why aren't they landing roles, or they may be landing job interviews but they're not getting anywhere, they're not getting the call back. One, that's because they skipped the foundation, the fundamentals, and most people do that and they wonder why they're not getting the callbacks, why they're not getting past the ATS filter. There's all these other factors that come into play, but that's the biggest one, right? You don't need to memorize every single port number or protocol, every single technical terminology, because listen, I forgot more than I've ever studied. Like, you see it on the wall over here. I got multiple certifications, I got 2 degrees in cybersecurity. You're gonna forget more than you learn. But the first thing you really could start off with, while you're building your foundation, is while you're studying for the core areas, the core domains of cybersecurity, you're gonna wanna earn your Security Plus certification. That's like the easiest baseline certification that you can earn, because that is a DoD 8570 cert that can get you in the door to work in a government technology position, if not in the private sector, right? So purpose of earning the certification is not to get a cybersecurity job immediately, but it's to qualify for, simple entry-level IT jobs, right? You really want to focus on learning things like the OSI model, basic networking, how infrastructure actually really works. Because if you don't even understand that, you're chopped. Be real with you. But you're gonna need to learn these concepts deeply enough to explain them in a conversation, no matter who you're talking to. Because when you go through the hiring process, you could be talking to not only the regular HR person who doesn't really even get the lingo you're talking about, but they got a vetted list that they have to vet you for to make sure that you truly understand what you're talking about. And if they don't even get that sense of confidence getting exuded out of you, then you're most likely not gonna get moved on to the next step. And on top of that, even if you do make it past the HR person, you gotta now make it past your peers that you might get interviewed by. And now they might actually be competent in the area they're interviewing you for, or they might just be in an adjacent domain of cybersecurity, right? And they might not really understand the technical nitty and gritty, but you gotta pass them before you get to the subject matter expert who's really gonna do the deep dive and technical interview with you. You also got these types of interviews where you gotta do personality, just to make sure, see if you're a good cultural fit with the people that you'll be working together with. Are you a good team player, or do you like to work individually? Things along those lines. So these are all the different gates that you can find yourself in. But in that first step, you really want to focus again on your foundation. So that way you can actually explain these topics in no matter what the stakeholder that you're talking to, this background is, right? So the step 2, after establishing your foundation, is you really want to get hands-on technical lab experience. Throughout establishing your foundation, you should have already been labbing, but now it's time you gotta get real deeper in whatever area that you want to specialize in. You gotta get your hands dirty. Like, you gotta actually be able to do the work. You gotta be able to not only talk the talk, but you gotta be able to walk the walk. And this is the biggest thing I see when I'm interviewing people, is that their resume looks perfect because everybody got ChatGPT these days, man. Or all these other different large language models you're using, and everyone's resume sounds amazing when you read it on paper, but then when you get in an interview with them, they flop like a fish out of water. Sometimes it's like, it's so cringe because the person doesn't even truly understand how far gone they are in competency of the topic that they landed an interview for. And there's nothing worse than actually landing an interview, making it through the process, but then you flop along the way. So you're really gonna wanna make sure you, again, get your hands dirty, get used to setting up virtual environments, get used to working in the cloud, get used to working on-prem, understanding the difference in nuances, difference of hybrid environments. If you're pen testing, you wanna get into being a penetration tester, well, you need to be able to pen test some things, right? Whether it be mobile applications or network pen testing or web applications, whatever you name it, because pen testing is a wide field and you could build a whole career just off of application testing alone or network testing, right? Let's say you want to get into incident response. Like, you got to be able to understand what is the IR process, right? So you need to practice those incident response scenarios, do some tabletops, try Hack Me. That's something that I use for all the people that I mentor in the field. Great tabletop scenarios there. And the biggest thing that I see a lot of people out of college and people who I've talked to that have kind of tried to make their own way, you need to document everything that you learn, whether that be on your GitHub or whether that be in a blog or whether that be in your own personal notes, because those notes or portfolio, that's what's gonna help you time and time in your career. So you need to follow a structured roadmap for what the path that you want to go down. The examples that you can bring to your interviews to showcase your experience, even when you are a beginner, is that when you document these things, you're building examples of your aptitude for learning, right? And your competency in the different core domains of cybersecurity, in addition to what you want to specialize in. Now, if you're watching this and you're feeling overwhelmed by all the different paths and resources out there, I've created a free playbook that actually breaks down the exact roadmap on how to break into cybersecurity without wasting time in 2026. Just click the first link in the description below to download it. But before you grab that, let me show you the next critical step that most beginners completely mess up. So in step 3, you really need to position yourself strategically, right? So this is like month 4, 8, full-time effort. You gotta build a LinkedIn profile that gets recruiters' attentions and hiring managers' attention. You gotta start creating your portfolio, showcasing your lab work, right? And your skills and experience from whatever other programs or experience that you've had from before, right? You gotta learn how to talk about your skills without sounding robotic or sounding too arrogant or cocky, because those are some common pitfalls people fall into. You also need to really understand what roles are you actually qualified for. And it's kind of hard to understand what roles you're qualified for when most of these job descriptions, they're asking for 5 years of experience just for an entry-level role, when really that's not the case. They really want to make sure that you have the technical competency. A lot of these jobs, they try to shoot for the unicorn and see who could they land, right? I was once there where I was like, man, what the heck? What am I gonna do? But don't undersell yourself and apply for jobs even if you feel you're not ready for, right? Because you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Apply for entry-level IT jobs in the beginning, not cybersecurity jobs if you don't have any specific IT experience, like help desk, IT support, data center technician, or junior sysadmin. Just something to get your foot in the door to showcase that, hey, you've got some experience in the tech world. Like me personally, I moved from Texas Roadhouse to a company called Mass Tech Advanced Technologies, and man, boy, did I learn about trial by fire, man. I had a trainer named Miguel, and I thank Miguel to this day because he taught me everything I need to know about like foundational IT, like actually wiring up networks, configuring routers, switches, all those things that actually really matter. I like to say the grunt work, but it's what actually connects us all as individuals, right? But once you've got your foot in the door, right, and you've got some entry-level IT experience, then now you need to master the interview process, because you've already went through interviews for the entry-level IT jobs that you have. Now it's time to jump into cybersecurity. So you gotta prepare relentlessly for interviews and make sure you're prepped. You gotta do research on the actual people interviewing you. see how could you make them laugh, what common interests you might have that you could bring up to build some sort of rapport within the first 2 minutes of that interview, because it's a big thing. If you cannot build rapport with your potential coworkers and they don't see you as somebody that they could kind of jive with or a good cultural fit, that's how some people kind of get excluded from being selected to move on and actually offered opportunities. Again, you need to really practice having those technical conversations with someone who's really experienced, because that's what's actually going to give you the confidence. So when you do get in an interview, you can exude the confidence that they would expect out of a candidate who is really competent. But if you don't exude that confidence, right, how can you expect that prospective employer to be confident in you if you're not even showing that you're confident in yourself? So this is a really big thing and a really common pitfall I see a lot of people fall into, right? Not only that, you need to be able to have the communication skills necessary for you to be able to hold those technical conversations with the various stakeholders. I said that earlier in step one, right? You need to do mock interviews, like being able to explain the core concepts of the roles and responsibilities and skills that are necessary for that position you are going after. If you can't do that, don't apply, because when you get in that interview, you will flop. You don't want to try to do this last minute preparation. You really need to talk through your thought process on how you would go about accomplishing certain tasks, so that way the employers can see what your mind works like, because everybody's mind works differently. Additionally, don't just be a robot. You gotta tell your story, right? Why cybersecurity? What actually is driving you? A lot of people try to get into this field for just the money, and I always tell people that's not gonna be enough, because the money isn't going to keep you driven to stay up to date with all the latest trends of technology that's going on in cybersecurity. This field is constantly advancing. In the last 3 years alone, I feel like this field has taken a completely 1080 degree turn from where I was at, back in 2013, 2014. Like, now we're dealing with large language models, AI. Like, this is the most exciting time ever to be in this field right now. Like, I've never been so excited. Yes, a lot of people are gonna lose their jobs because of AI and automation, but the people who have the skills to harness the power of AI in all the various ways that you could apply it, those are the people who are going to be driving the ship and are going to be highly sought after, because employers are going to want the productivity gains from those who can actually perform with the tools in front of them. So you're going to want to be a power user of AI and figure out how could you securely implement that into your workflows, right? Another thing I really want to touch on is a couple common mistakes that will keep you stuck. I'll tell you right now, mistake number one, certification hopping without practical experience. Like, just collecting, a Security Plus, a CEH before even ever touching a lab, you're chopped. You might be able to land a few interviews here and there, but the cracks in your foundation will end up showing under pressure. I'm telling you, it's so cringe when that happens in an interview. It's like, I'm trying to be as respectful as possible when I'm saying this, and I'm only giving this feedback because I myself was once on the other end of that, and I have also given this feedback to others, right? So certifications, they don't replace hands-on skills, right? Employers, they want someone who can actually do the work and not just pass the exams, right? You really need to get, probably 1 or 2 foundational certs at max, and then focus on, your labs and real projects, continuously. The next mistake that, I see people do all the time, again, is they're applying for jobs they're not actually ready for. Now, I don't want you to confuse this for what I said before is like, apply to jobs even if you don't feel you're fully qualified for, but there's a big difference, right? You're not gonna apply to a senior penetration testing role with 0 experience and expect to land the role. Like, that's just not happening. Like, this is the best way I could put it, right? But you need to know your level and be honest with yourself and target roles that are appropriate, where you know that you can contribute value come day one of coming on to that team, right? You need to be able to make sure you're not gonna be someone that they're gonna have to constantly train, because there's no on-the-job training really with cybersecurity. Like, most companies, they want you to come with that training and the ability to train yourself, because there's a lot of areas in cybersecurity where there's a lot of ambiguity, where you gotta figure it out, where you gotta go and educate yourself, or maybe there's a new technology that comes out. Now you gotta become a subject matter expert on that. You have to have the aptitude to do that, right? The next mistake that I really commonly see is people learning without direction or accountability. This kind of goes back into mistake number one, but jumping from one YouTube tutorial to another with no structure, it's a recipe for disaster. I was once there. I'm not even gonna hold you. Back in the day, there was a lot of courses that I felt really weren't as valuable as some of the YouTube videos I was watching that was educating me on how to perform certain attacks. But definitely, you really need a structure. You need a plan, a method to the madness, right? Another thing is, like, I see a lot of people, they're starting multiple different courses. I talk to them, they ask me to be their mentor, and then I ask them about, what's their plan, what they've been doing, and I hear that they've got 10 different things in progress. You gotta actually start one thing and finish that, then move on to the next. This field, honestly, I got ADHD, so I bounce around all over the place, but I really have to focus on a task-oriented list in order for me to make sure that I'm being as productive as possible, right? And that's just my experience, and I work with a lot of different people with different backgrounds, and they relay the same thing. We're always bouncing around, juggling different priorities. In this career field, if you don't have ADHD, it'll probably give it to you. But you gotta understand how to deal with all the different juggling priorities that are going on in the field, right? And when you're in the stage of just trying to land a role, no one is gonna hold you accountable to actually complete the work, right? So you gotta actually be self-driven and have the discipline to do that. And that right there is the main reason why people spend 2 to 3 years learning and never actually land a job. The bar is moving every single day, right? But you need an actual roadmap. You need a mentor. Well, you don't need a mentor, but if you want to streamline the whole process, you're going to want a mentor. If you want to cut the learning curve down, all the trials and mistakes, all the tribulations down from years to months, then yeah, you need to get a mentor. And you need to be able to take constructive criticism and have accountability, and not more random content, right? Get that one-on-one guidance that cuts through all the noise. You need signal. This is something I learned a lot when I was doing a lot of residential and commercial wiring. That signal to noise ratio. If you don't understand what that is, that signal is like the actual data that you need that you can take action on, rather than getting that noise, kind of like that background, like the gray TV, like with that static screen. Yeah, that signal is where you actually get that value out of. So another thing is, this field can feel like you're drinking from a fire hose in the beginning, but you'll get used to it. But you need to be able to hold yourself accountable. And you just understand you don't know what you don't know. And without somebody, correcting you or helping guide you, you'll end up wasting time. It's just the truth. But if you have someone to help you out, you'll be able to cut through all of the fluff. So pretty much, I know this is a pretty long-winded video, but this is exactly how to get into cybersecurity in 2026 as a complete beginner. If you follow every single step in this video, you will break into cybersecurity. But doing this alone means you'll waste months on wrong certifications, getting overwhelmed by conflicting advice, and lack the accountability to actually stay consistent. This is exactly why I want you to click the first link in the description to download my free cybersecurity playbook, where you'll get an exact roadmap that's helped not only me, but over 100 people transition into cybersecurity careers in under a year, some a little bit over. It just really depends on what your time frame is and how much are you investing in yourself. And I mean investing, I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about actual time, dedication, not distracted time while you're studying, doing a bunch of things, watching TV, listen to a podcast, or on your phone, on IG every few minutes. No, actual undistracted time. But if you're wondering if this is actually possible for you, for someone like you, but you don't really know, then I really need you to watch this next video, where I break down how Alex went from serving tables to becoming a penetration tester in just 1 year. It took me almost 4, 5. Alex did it with me in 1 year. If he can do it, you can do it with the right guidance.